So in Module 5, we talk about emotional intelligence, and I think emotional intelligence really reflects back onto student success. We always talk about the word success and what success means, and I think each one of us defines success a little differently. It's been an argument being an ag-ed teacher. If my kids go to a college that's not necessarily a four-year school, then they're considered unsuccessful. Or if they go to a trade school, that's considered unsuccessful. So those are just a few examples of how different perceptions can vary amongst the definition of success. And everything that I've researched with emotional intelligence, I really feel like it falls back onto student success or just personal success for that matter. So I want to talk about first, like, what is success? So the dictionary, of course, if you look up success, it's something that you accomplish or that you aim to accomplish. So my definition is anything that you can accomplish in your life, that is success. And like I said, everyone's opinion can vary based on their own personal perceptions. So what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence involves the idea that cognitive and emotional aspects are interrelated. So they fall hand in hand. So perception of emotion is where you are able to communicate through your emotions. So I'm able to relay what I feel and how I'm feeling just through my emotions. Using those emotions helps facilitate certain activities. Sometimes this can be difficult for everyone, especially students who maybe haven't been taught really how to build their emotional intelligence. Understanding emotions is a really big part of having good emotional intelligence. It's really important to, I think, as an educational leader, to understand maybe a student is giving you negative emotions. It's important to understand that that's a sign that they are maybe not understanding the homework assignment or the project that they're working on. And it's important to help them understand how to read those emotions from other people. So a person who is skilled at emotional intelligence is able to control their emotions by finding ways that can alter their emotions. So maybe I'm frustrated over working on this assignment, but I'm going to find a way to change my mindset and push forward. So emotional intelligence directly affects student learning and progress in the classroom in all content areas. So students want to know the information they're learning is practical and can be used in their future. So I found this really interesting with our discussion questions, that we want to find ways that our content is going to help students be interested because they're going to use it in their life. I can somehow relate whenever a student comes in and tells me, oh, geometry, it's not important. Well, then, I sat and I thought about it, and I got to thinking about my classes. Again, I teach shop class, and geometry is crucial to shop class because we're building things, and dimensions and all of the things are important. So again, we look at emotional intelligence affecting the way students are feeling towards those things. And I think it's really important that we teach them how to control that and how to change, again, that mindset. So some of the questions: why are we learning the things? How is it going to benefit me in the future? And is this information going to help me secure a job? I think that's like the most important one for most students. So emotional intelligence in relation to emotion. So emotional intelligence plays a major role in being able to recognize your personal emotions along with the people in the room, their emotions. So a quote from the Mindset Tools content team: it also involves your perception of others. When you understand how they feel, this allows you to manage relationships more effectively. So if you are able to understand how a person is feeling, that might help the way you go about the situation or you perceive the situation, which long-term may help problem solve and decision making, which are two big keys when you're talking about emotional intelligence. So people who experience a strong emotional intelligence typically have strong people skills. So they're able to communicate well with people. They're able to, be tactful and poised with their words. So emotional intelligence in relation to cognitive functions. So emotional intelligence is going to directly relate to the individual and how they can manage those relationships and empathize with others. So mentally, a person is able to relate with others. So I can sit and think, oh, maybe this is how they're feeling. A person is able to separate distractions and negative emotions and still maintain their personal motivation. I think this is really important. If somebody is being negative, you are able to set that aside and continue to move forward. So patterns of appraisals that bring out emotional intelligence. So RioPel had a lot of really good information. I listed this in my resources below. The more skillful you are at discerning the feelings behind other signals, the better you will be able to control the signals you send back to them. So how I take this quote is whenever somebody is being negative or has a bad attitude, you are able to thoughtfully put that aside and still be positive back towards them. I think that's really important when we talk about emotional intelligence, and I think that really does affect the brain and the emotional function. I think that's a perfect example of they're putting that on you, but you are able to set that aside and mentally decide this is what we're going to do. So being able to acknowledge this is a way of bringing out and teaching emotional intelligence from a young age. So this acknowledgement first of oneself and then of the others is the foundation for self-reflection and differentiation. So mirroring behavior is super important, I think, for children especially, because they need to see what emotional intelligence should look like, right? I mean, we should be educational leaders, whether we're teachers or parents. Mirroring expands and deepens this acknowledgement of the other's experience. Modulating experience is a crucial part of emotional intelligence. Self-soothing behavior originates from the caregiver in childhood. So this starts at a really young age. They need to understand how this relates. Creating or co-creating allows children to visualize where and what needs to happen. So as children, our caregivers provide an alternative activity to help us move forward as we explore and learn. So I think this is really important because maybe this shows like there's more than one way to do a task or something similar to that example. So measuring emotional intelligence, I'm only going to talk about 2 ways. There are several different ways from what I found in my research. The first way is a self-assessment. Things that are specifically assessed by the individual. So I sit and I think, okay, self-expression. And am I highly aware of my own thoughts and feelings? Yes or no? And then at what level? Am I really good or am I just okay at it? Self-perception, being able to understand and evaluate myself. So can I decide I need to have a better mindset, or I need to have a better attitude working on this, or maybe this area of school isn't my strong suit because I don't enjoy it. Interpersonal skills, being able to interact and work well with others. I find this with my younger students. I'm at a high school level. Freshmen don't always get along, and I notice that. Sometimes their emotional intelligence, maybe that's where we start to really bridge that gap and start working on that. Decision making, being able to control emotions in decision making, staying objective to the decision made, and not being impulsive. I think this is really critical, especially, again, I said I'm a high school teacher. You need to be able to learn to make decisions, not to be impulsive, and still staying objective when you're making the decision. I think this is crucial to emotional intelligence, and I think it's crucial when you start to grow up and become an adult. Stress management, this is something I personally need to work on. Being flexible, tolerating stress well, and staying optimistic. So I think this is really important for us high school teachers to really start to teach this emotional intelligence aspect. Stress management is crucial. We need to teach the kids to be flexible. Things aren't always going to go as planned. Tolerating stress, we all probably could work on that. And then, of course, staying optimistic, staying positive, knowing that I'm going to get done with this presentation in under 15 minutes. That's a perfect example. So the second way to measure emotional intelligence is through testing and analyzing data, of course. So they have a test that they actually give you, and it asks you questions like, do you feel like you are this way and at what level? So it's kind of the same way as a self-assessment, except it's already pre-laid out. You just fill in the bubbles and then it generates it, kind of like the personality test. So then, of course, they evaluate it and graph it and kind of see where you fall. So some of the things that they might ask is, what emotion might someone feel prior to a job interview? Sadness, excitement, nervousness, or all of them. Those are things that they would use when they're assessing those things. So how does emotional intelligence promote learning? So to begin, recognize that an emotionally intellect teacher is the first step to an emotionally intellect classroom. So I really like this statement because I feel like it's very accurate. I feel like if the teacher has a high emotionally intelligent room and behavior and they're modeling it, again, we go back to modeling, I feel like that helps the students model that behavior also. And then I really feel like this goes back to social emotional learning. We talked about social emotional learning, last spring. It was a big thing with all the COVID things. How are we caring for the students? How are they feeling? We want to know. So social emotional learning is a great way to promote emotional intelligence. Students are able to engage in a safe and respectful conversation. So having them sit and have a discussion, they know that they're safe and they know they can be respectful to one another. So teachers who prioritize teaching emotional intelligence report lower levels of behavioral issues, classroom bullying, and chronic absenteeism. So I think this is a great quote. I think that we all, as educational leaders, should be promoting emotional intelligence in the classroom. So the application to emotional intelligence in my personal classroom, since starting Module 5, I've really started to evaluate kind of where my kids are, really started to look at each individual student. I only deal with about a third of the school, so it's been interesting just to watch my students and how they interact and how they talk to each other, and how they talk to me, actually. It's been interesting. I've really found that we're lacking in my school district. I think that as educators, we need to step up, and in our school, we need to do better at teaching and promoting emotional intelligence. And then, of course, here are my references.